Lisa, can I just check? Am I sharing the screen appropriately? I can't see anyone
You
now that
are.
I'm sharing. Okay, great. So just shout at me if you need me to do anything, otherwise, because I can't see people. Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Linda.
Okay, let's kick off then, everyone. Once again, apologies for the IT caused delay. Thank you all for joining us in a holiday week. We've got a pretty packed agenda, focusing very much on engagement opportunities. We've got some great presentations about what's happening, and I also want us to spend a little time exploring perhaps what we can do more. So let's go then to minutes on the action log. They were both sent out a few weeks ago. Any issues with the minutes from anyone who's there? No. And the action log, anyone want to, any questions, any issues on the action log? I think they're all showing us in progress or completed. Lisa, nothing you need to add about that?
No.
No. Okay, great. Right. I'm currently away from home, so I don't have I normally have quite a big screen, so I'm on a laptop and my daughter, so hopefully I'll be able to see you, but stick your hand up, and if I don't see you, shout. Okay, so first of all, the delivery group then. Kath, are you there?
I certainly am, yeah.
Oh, Kath, well, over to you. You're on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So I've just got 4 small items I wanted to share with you. The minutes haven't come out from the meeting, so anybody on the call that was in the delivery group who wants to add anything, please do. And if you have any comments or questions at the end of it, please ask them. And if I can answer them, I will. And if not, I'll direct it to somebody else. Okay, so the first thing is the cancer standards data. So just wanted to share with you the 62-day backlog. So this is from data on the 4th of February, that there have been a 10% reduction in patients waiting for 62 days or longer. So that's great. All 6 integrated care boards actually saw a reduction of the number of patients waiting. So again, that's good. And Bucks Health Trust has met their end of March 24 national requirements. So all positive. I can't share any of the actual figures with you, unfortunately. There are still a fair number of patients waiting on that 62-day backlog, but things are sort of going in the right direction, but hopefully they'll look to go in the right direction a bit more within the future. Bearing in mind there are a number of areas where we don't have people in position to do some of the jobs that are required, but I know that recruitment will be going on as we speak, so that's all good. The second thing is the main cancer pathways that have been given emphasis are the following. So skin, gynae, urology, breast and colorectal. Also, there's been an upturn in the number of referrals for cancer through the secondary route, which is through the hospital route, which we need to be aware of, because obviously that will potentially impact later on. And also, you might have seen in the news that some of the papers were reporting the Kate effect. Now this wasn't in the delivery group, but I thought it was pertinent to raise it here, is that there have been an upturn, it appears, in the number of people that have been going and looking for information on cancer. So what we may see over the next 6 to 12 months possibly is an increase in primary care, and then probably an increase to secondary care. So I think it's a bit of watch this space, but there's not a lot of us can do about it other than encourage people if they are thinking they may have cancer. So, you know, anybody you're aware of, point them in the right direction of the signs and symptoms. So going on further, so FIT testing, so the bowel cancer screening test. So FIT stands for fecal immunochemical test, most of you or some of you will have probably done this. This test looks for, I'm just going to go through what it looks for. So it looks for blood in the poo. It looks for tiny traces of blood that you may or may not be able to see. And if a test is positive, i.e. blood is found, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have cancer. It could be piles or something else going on. But why I raised this is it was mentioned that the level of positivity, so the amount of blood that's found in your sample, will be managed in the future by a different set of clinics, so different clinics. So I don't know any more than that, other than to say that if I suppose they think it might be a pile related poo, then you'll go down a particular route rather than going down a different route. So that was that. And finally, now Lyndall's on the call, I know. And Lyndall, if you have anything to add, or I've got this out of context, then please do come in. So this is unplanned care for cancer patients in an acute setting. So it was a talk given by Dr. Claire Jacobs and Emma Earnshaw, who are in the acute, who work in acute, who have done a project in acute oncology. So what they've looked at is patients who have cancer may go on to develop something called a metastatic spinal cord compression. And this is recognised as a complication of cancer, which usually patients become an emergency, and it requires rapid diagnosis and treatment to prevent paralysis. So they've done a project and developed a pathway which is being rolled out, I think I'm right in saying, across emergency departments, to ensure that patients are seen very urgently, and all of the interventions, diagnosis and treatments are in line, and the right people are making them, and they're giving the right type of medication at the right time. Because my understanding is if it's done at the wrong time or too slowly, then it, or the not recovery of the patient. So have I said that correctly, Lyndall?
You did very well, Kath. It is just so acute oncology services are set up in each acute trust across the Alliance and, nationally, and they look after patients who are acutely unwell due to their cancer treatment. So that may be in relation to chemotherapy or radiotherapy, or newly diagnosed, unknown cancer diagnosis that come into hospitals. There is a pathway which is known as the metastatic spinal cord pathway. So if someone has had cancer and then they potentially have developed bone metastases, that may put somebody at risk for developing this spinal cord compression. It needs to be treated as an emergency. And so there is a pathway currently in place, and there's new nice guidance to try and support that. But what Claire was saying, as Kath has said, is they're just looking at how that pathway is being delivered and updating it to the new guidance that needs to be in place and how that would be delivered across the patch. But it's just a very important part of it is around the education of staff in hospitals to identify it appropriately in primary care, and patients themselves knowing the symptoms to look out for. But yeah, thanks, Kath. You did a good job.
Thank you.
Okay.
See, there's
Anything
a
else to add,
question.
Kat?
No, that's it. Thank you. Yeah, I hope I've captured it. There was a lot going on, and without any minutes and also without any slides up front, it was quite a challenge, to be honest.
I can imagine. Okay, we've got a couple of people with hands up. Peter?
Yeah, thank you, William. Just to say that that Ted Wingrove is chair of the Reading Bowel Cancer Group, and I'd be grateful if he could be consulted directly on bowel cancer screening. Thank you. Okay, and Patrick?
Thanks, William. And firstly, thanks, Kath, for your work on the delivery group. But I've got sort of more concerns, I think, if I'm honest, that the headline to me is that we've yet again failed to meet the 62-day target. And this is no criticism of people involved on a day-to-day basis. But although there's a 10% reduction in waiting, there are still significant numbers of patients who aren't receiving treatment in a timely way. And therefore, I'm not sure all is good, and this is particularly positive. And I do think it's beholden on us as a patient group to keep campaigning on that basis wherever and whenever we can, to say that we don't think this is acceptable for the NHS to keep failing to meet its cancer targets.
I think that's a very good point, and clearly, it's good that we've got a 10% reduction in weight, but that's still a hell of a lot of people still waiting. Kath, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, it's quite. I sit in quite a tricky position because obviously I want to put them in a positive light, and I had asked previously in the delivery meeting, I think in this meeting as well at one point, about having numbers. There are numbers, but they're not. Lisa knows the situation because we've had a conversation over this in the last few days. We're not able to share them, and I do find that that's quite tricky sitting as a patient, I must be honest. And I think that how do I say this? I think the difficulty is that a lot of what the data that comes out is around the national standards. So if somebody actually doesn't meet them, there's a set of data put in place to make it look better. Going back to what you were saying, Patrick, and I think that what I would say to TVCA is that when is that data going to be available to the patients so that we have something black and white to then do something with? Does that hold true with what?
Yeah, I mean, I'll bring Patrick in just a minute. I mean, I think that's a very important point. And, Kath, I've also had similar issues in the past. And it's not technically that, it's not about the data not being released to patients. It's about the fact that there's a huge delay while it's verified. And, what I hear at the executive and I want to report is unverified. So therefore, by the time it's verified, it's kind of, 3 or 4 months later. So I think there is an issue there that we need to challenge.
Yeah.
Patrick, you want to come back in?
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, thanks, William and Kath, because I think I suspect you've got a great deal of support from other patients and everybody affected by cancer to pursue this. Quite bluntly, we have a right to those figures. This is our health service. It's not the TVCA's, it's our health service. And I think we have a right to those numbers. And people should be accountable for those numbers. And I feel quite strongly about it. So as far as we can, Kath, I mean, even personally, I'm not speaking for anybody else, but you've certainly got my support in pursuing it as much as you possibly can whenever you can. And thanks for your efforts.
Yeah.
Okay, Lyndall, do you want to make a comment on this?
Sorry.
If I may, it's just to say that I don't think people want to hide the results from you. Unfortunately, we've had some gaps in workforce at TVCA, and that covers the data team. And so where there, I think there is a willingness there, and I'll take these comments back to the team. But traditionally, NHS England will only release verified data, as you've discussed, and it does take a couple of months to verify that data with clinical teams, and the information does change. So teams don't necessarily want to have data out in the public domain that's not correct for their organization. So I appreciate it takes time, but that's the current process that we have to sort of work to. But it's really important to recognize that there has been improvement. It's still not where it needs to be. And I think everyone acknowledges that. And I think some of the stuff that's going on in the background that I'm aware of. So some trusts go into what they call tiering, and there's what's called tier 1 and tier 2, depending on their cancer performance. And that's where extra money goes into trying to support the turnaround. And where trusts have had that tier 2 supporting from NHS England, they do see significant improvement in FDS and 62-day standard. So that process of trying to support the struggling trusts is certainly happening across the country to try and improve it. but there's still a long way to go. And there's lots of different reasons for that in relation to workforce capacity, industrial action, and various things. But what I would like to say for the clinicians on the ground, and I appreciate it's a really difficult situation because there's many people that are also working really hard to try and turn this around to support the patients, and absolutely see that at the heart of things. And so I think I don't want to get involved in politics, but there's we do need to flag it, absolutely. And I think the national team are aware of that, and hence why the focus for the next 24-25 business priorities very much is on performance and backlog and trying to improve that.
Okay, thanks, Lyndall. I'm sure you'll follow it up, and I'll make a commitment to kind of, for you and I to keep in touch about that, because it's an important thing. I mean, one of the kind of real parts of it that frustrates me is if the data is available to be reported to the executive, and the PPG in a sense is a kind of internal to the alliance rather than being the public. I must admit, I don't understand why we're not in a position to share it confidentially amongst ourselves. But anyway, let's just leave it where it is. We obviously need to follow it up. Okay, thanks very much. Before we go on to the next item, because I couldn't quite see all participants at the beginning, I neglected to welcome Saba Sadiq coming to our first meeting. So welcome, Saba. Thanks for joining us. Is there anyone else who said this is their first meeting?
Yes, good afternoon. It's also my first meeting too.
Okay,
I'm Simon
welcome.
from Healthwatch. Thank you.
Okay, right. That takes us on to item 3. Catriona, over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to talk to you this afternoon. I actually have some slides which I'm assuming there's no obstacle to me sharing at the moment, please, so I can just hit share. Great, thank you. Now I've just got to find them. Okay. So can everybody see those slides? We good?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So just to introduce myself, I know there are some people on this call that I've met before and worked with for quite a long time, I'm happy to say. But for those of you that don't know me, my name's Katrina, and I'm a PPI manager at Oxford Cancer. And PPI, just again, for those that haven't heard that acronym before, usually stands for Patient and Public Involvement. Sometimes you'll hear it also PPIE, Patient and Public Involvement and Engagement. But essentially, it's the sort of refers to the numbers of the various processes and ways in which people who are conducting cancer research can learn from and work with people who have experience of cancer. So just to give you a little bit of an overview of what Oxford Cancer does, I won't read this out because to me this slide, it's something that my bosses use, but it doesn't always make a great deal of sense to me. It's quite hard to describe what Oxford Cancer is. Oxford Cancer is essentially, it began life as the Cancer Research UK Oxford Centre. So its origins were, and we continue to partner with CR UK, but the origins were about Cancer Research UK putting money into a centre of excellence, or a centre that did a lot of cancer research to kind of facilitate and make things happen. So that's essentially what we try and do. And there's particular emphasis on bringing together people who are interdisciplinary workers, so people who are not just scientists and clinicians, but people who are engineers and data scientists and mathematicians, and sort of really thinking broadly about what cancer research means, and trying to facilitate sort of rapid translation of what's going on in the laboratory into delivery of new treatments for patients. And this is a sort of terrifying slide, really, but just to indicate that there's a huge number of members who are sort of sign up to keep informed of what we're doing, and in many cases work with us, about up to sort of 900 plus cancer researchers across Oxford. I mentioned that we're interested in interdisciplinary working, and we do sort of themed areas of research that we kind of group together under centres of excellence. Again, that's the idea of bringing people who are working with laboratories in partnership with people who are delivering surgery or radiotherapy or chemotherapy, and trying to sort of support and facilitate and bring people together and pool resources. So Oxford Cancer provides things like data management services. A lot of the work we do is around access to data, cleaning up data, managing data, providing the facilities to store it and sort of and quality control it. And we have project managers who help facilitate things. We build sort of teams around particular areas. So we've got a Centre for Early Detection. We're very interested in immuno-oncology. So there are sort of various sort of core areas of activity. We fund DPhil students in cancer science. So each year we fund 12 to 15 studentships who are full-time PhD students at the University of Oxford. And we also have a grant-making capacity, and we provide people with pump priming to get projects off the ground. So that's just a bit of background to what Oxford Cancer does. And PPI is another service that Oxford Cancer provides. So our team are very, very keen to ensure that the people that we work with and the research that we support proceeds from a good understanding of what matters to patients. And we're also very keen to promote best practice in PPI. So to encourage our colleagues to do it well, to think broadly about PPI, and to get away from perhaps some of the historical assumptions about what patient involvement looks like. So perhaps once upon a time, people who might consider PPI sort of begins and ends with parking a person on a steering committee, or getting someone to sort of co-sign a sort of a grant application and rubber stamp what you're doing. We're much more interested in relationship building with researchers, getting people involved early, and thinking sort of very broadly about how the perspectives of patients can be a voice that challenges you and strengthens what you're doing. So we've got a panel of roughly, it's getting up towards 50 people at the moment, but sometimes we work in partnership with other groups, national and local. Our members sit on advisory panels for different kinds of research. We support grant applications. We are quite keen to encourage our cancer science DPhil students to think about PPI from early on in their career as scientists. So we have input into their educational program, and we have a sort of a close relationship, we hope, with centre management and our PPI colleagues. So PPI is one of those things that people can get sort of terribly worked up about and wring their hands and talk. There's lots of talk about frameworks and how to do it and what to do and how to sort of mitigate against its shortcomings. And there's a huge literature on PPI, but I try and sort of remind myself that essentially what we're talking about bringing researchers and people affected by cancer together in the hope that there's mutual learning and flourishing. I'm particularly interested in how we can, through bringing people in and getting them involved with research and help and getting them to hear about research and learn, I'm very interested in how that experience translates into people living better in multiple ways. People feel sort of hopeful. They feel excited. It's really amazing to sort of, I think when you're sort of in the midst of being treated for cancer, and you're sort of you're facing the sort of the delivery end. We've sort of heard already this afternoon about the challenges, as you all know, of the difficulty delivering in the NHS, and it can feel, I think, from that perspective, as if there's not a lot to feel hopeful about. But in fact, when you sort of learn about what's going on and the passion and the investment and the commitment and the ideas that happen in the laboratories just over the road from the Churchill Hospital, there's something really hopeful about that, I think, and really very, very exciting to sort of engage with the people that are trying to make these things better. So as we know, PPI can happen throughout the research cycle, and I just want to give you a few examples of some of the work that I've been involved with over the year that I've been here. So we try and sort of think from as early as possible in terms of clinical trials, getting people involved in deciding on what the research priorities are, through to sort of the delivery of the project and oversight and accountability and reporting and all of that kind of stuff. We're very interested in the challenges of PPI in basic research. So a lot of the people that we work with are people who work in laboratories and sort of do really high-tech kind of science, and sometimes those people really struggle to understand how they might involve patients and the public and what's in it for them. And they're all required to fill in when they apply for money. They're always required to make a statement about their PPI plans, but most of them don't have the first idea about how to do it. So this year we're going to be spending quite a bit of time thinking about that. We're actually going to be applying for funding for a project to try and sort of articulate that a little bit more effectively. We talked about research priorities. So one of the things that we have been working on recently is in partnership with, sorry, I'm jumping forward here, in partnership with a group called Octopus, which is a charity that funds colorectal cancer research in Oxford. They paid for us to do a workshop with a group of people who have experience of colorectal cancer. And again, this was the purpose of this was to initiate a discussion about what matters most, to bring people together to share experiences, and then to talk about if you had limited resources, what would be the most important things to you. So at the end of this process, you come up with a kind of a list of priorities that we can share with our colleagues. And by doing this, we're sort of bringing the patient voice into the conversations that we have around research. We did a similar thing at a workshop, a meeting with people with esophagogastric cancer to sort of, again, sort of get them to think about what matters most to them. So these sorts of lists of priorities and ideas that will feed into our centres of excellence. And in fact, in the case of esophagogastric cancer, I don't know, I keep flicking through my slides and I don't mean to. We had a lady at this very workshop actually who had a really, really good idea about a project to look at insulin regulation and blood sugar levels in people who've had their esophagus removed, because it can be a real problem post-operatively. People have sort of issues with sort of big fluctuations in blood sugar levels. So we're going to try and make that into a project that we can sort of bring to fruition. So that's kind of about getting a patient idea and actually trying to make it happen. We set up a meeting with that lady and some people who kind of might be interested in getting that research happening. We can provide them with some pump priming to make it happen. So we're really trying to sort of genuinely turn patients' ideas into a piece of research that might sort of really deliver on something that affects a lot of people. We've done some work recently about big data. So again, this is sort of thinking about taking PPI away from your sort of what we might just think of in relation to clinical trials. This was a piece of research that was to do with access to personal data for people who are trying to use big data to support improving standards in colorectal cancer management. And the group of researchers were asked to do a big consultation exercise that we got involved in. So we commented on the materials that were going to be shared with the focus group. We could contributed to the organisation of the focus groups, and some of our members took part in the focus groups. So this was a way that we sort of became part of a kind of a consultation sort of community to talk about what matters to patients, what people might be worried about in terms of big data and storage of data and the issues that it raises. So that's one thing that we've done recently. We've done some work around high-risk communities. So quite a lot of Oxford Cancer's research looks at preventing cancer in people who are at high risk of certain cancers. And we organised an event that brought together people with certain syndromes. So they might include genetic mutations like the BRCA mutations. They might include conditions like something called Li-Fraumeni syndrome and Lynch syndrome. So these are genetic sort of mutations and that contribute to a person's risk of getting cancer during their lifetime. So we brought people together to talk about what their experience is of living with a high-risk condition and what they might expect of preventative research. And some of that work has informed the development of cancer vaccines. There's quite a lot of work going on at Oxford in different groups looking at ways in which people might be vaccinated against cancer or against cancer recurrence. So that's a big area of interest for our community. And at the moment, in fact, last week, we organised a separate series of workshops to talk about lung cancer vaccination with people who have had experience of lung cancer. And then again, talking about the idea of giving back and enriching people's lives and educating them and making them sort of feel, you know, getting the buzz across about science. We've recently conducted a series of workshops that are talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning in cancer medicine. One of the great things about working here is access to some very, very high profile world leading sort of intellectuals who are working in this area. So we've had conversations with a series of people who have a lot of experience about how to use AI in endoscopy, for instance, or how to use AI in radiology in the management of lung cancer lesions. We've heard about how AI might support laboratory pathology and sort of improving the diagnosis of rare blood cancers. So these are sessions that are sort of intended to be two-way. So again, getting back to that idea that PPI is something that has mutual benefit, and not just in terms of getting a study up and running, but in terms of how everyone feels about what they're doing, and challenging each other. These sessions really felt like a nice two-way thing with the group of people in the room actually sort of telling the experts something that they didn't know, and they were really, really enjoyable sessions. So I'm not going to talk for too much longer. This was really just a very top-level introduction to the kinds of things that we offer and do. We genuinely try and make sure that the people that we work with enjoy what they're doing, that they feel that it's valuable to them and valued by the people that we work with. And it's just a great joy to turn a bad experience into something that's worthwhile. So it's work that I'm very, very passionate about. And if anyone wants to find out more, Lisa has my email address. My email address is here at the end as well. Patrick, I know, is on the call. He's a long-standing member of our group, so he can put you in touch as well. So thanks again for having me, and I will stop sharing there.
Okay, thanks, Catriona. Patrick, you want to come in?
Problems with my...
We can hear you now.
Yes, yes, I'm on now. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, just very briefly, as Katrina said there, I've had the great pleasure to be involved in volunteering with the Oxford Cancer Centre, and I've got to say, it's one of the most enjoyable, valuable, and worthwhile volunteering experiences that I've had, and I've done a lot over quite a few years now. There is a real commitment and passion from the leadership down at Oxford Cancer Centre to involve people affected by cancer in everything that they're doing. There's a wide range and ever-growing number of opportunities, and I think if you are at all interested, don't hesitate. As I say, I come away from anything that I've done there feeling it was time well spent, feeling it was so worthwhile. And in that little way, you know, you come away from something feeling, well, I think I've made a little bit of a difference there. I've met so many wonderful people, both researchers, staff at the Cancer Centre and other volunteers. I've learned so much from them. I can't recommend it highly enough. You don't need a science or a research background. I certainly haven't got one. You're made more than welcome. And as I say, right from the top, there's a determination at Oxford to put people affected by cancer right at the centre of what is some really world-class leading research. So please do contact Katrina if you're interested. I'm happy to talk to anybody if you'd like to explore it a bit more. But if you are, please do get involved. You'll love it.
And I would certainly reinforce the importance and encourage people to get involved. So, Catriona, you can give Patrick the tenner later.
Yes, yeah, your money's in the post, Patrick. Thank you.
Saba, welcome. You want to comment?
Everyone. Katrina, I just wanted to ask a question. I'm really interested in the work that you are doing, because I think data and having data is what's going to pave the way for better treatments and better outcomes. Can I ask, with regards to the data focus groups, how demographically diverse are they ethnicity-wise? Because one of the things, as a South Asian, having had the cancer experience, I'm an ovarian cancer survivor, the thing that I've experienced in the road of my treatments was the health inequalities in treatment and care because of the lack of data and information with regards to the ethnic minorities.
Okay, thanks, Abba.
No,
Katrina?
thanks for that question, Saba, and it's absolutely a major sort of area of concern across all of cancer research. Actually, the issue of inclusivity is the hottest subject when you go to sort of any kind of forum these days. It's inclusivity. What about, you know, how can we make sure that we're adequately representative? That's a major hot topic. In terms of I can't speak about the data science and the data kind of side, but I do know that from a PPI perspective, the projects that we've been involved in that are looking at data collection and sample collection, for instance, biobanks and data diversity sort of projects, where we're sort of trying to, I think the first challenge certainly with data is to really understand the problem adequately. Sometimes there are issues with around, as far as I understand, and again, this isn't my area of expertise, but there's when you're trying to talk about NHS data, there's sometimes sort of not a lot of clarity in terms of the precision in how that data is collected. So I know people are sort of trying to grapple with a good understanding of the problem in terms, so then you can sort of plan what you're going to do about it. In terms of our PPI community, we've made a concerted effort over the last 12 months to reach out to communities of people that we hadn't had adequate representation from before. And I can genuinely say that over the last sort of 6 to 8 months, our group of people is starting to look a lot more like the communities that we serve. So you know, and we've done that actually through, I think one of the things that we've learned is that it really helps if you've got a targeted project. So if you want to recruit people who come from a background that's not adequately represented in the work that you're doing, if you sort of say this is the project that we have a problem with, and this is why we need to reach out to your community in particular, it helps to sort of have a focus, as opposed to we just need some more diversity on our panel. That's often not particularly persuasive, and that can sort of sound as though we're being a bit tokenistic. So what's been much more successful to us has been we've been working with a woman who is a breast surgeon who is doing a project to look at outcomes in ethnic minority women, because there's sort of evidence to suggest that women from certain minority ethnic groups are less likely to have good outcomes when they're treated for breast cancer. So they're more likely to be diagnosed with more advanced disease or disease that's more difficult to treat. And she wants to tackle this. And as part of tackling that, she wants to build a big PPI community of sort of with representation across different minority ethnic groups. And that piece of work has given us a way into sort of opening conversations with groups that we hadn't been in conversation with before sufficiently, and we've been able to bring them into a project that feels like it has value. It feels like it's got a focus and a purpose. It's not just about, well, we just need to have more. Do you know what I mean? I think it's good if you can be. But there's obviously, I mean, honestly, I could go on and on about this. Is such a big area of focus for us as an organisation and as a PPI community to really, and it's also a challenge for the university. So when I talk about sort of the work that we do here at Oxford Cancer, we're also part of a huge organisation that's doing a huge amount of medical research, and the University of Oxford is something that is trying very hard to figure out how best to do good community engagement, because you can't have sort of, you know, community groups that are just trampled over by one researcher after another who's coming in with a piece of paper wanting to know what Muslim women think, for instance, or there's the real risk of damaging relationships with communities, because communities can feel as though they're used, that people come in, ask some questions, they go away, and you never hear from them again. So, and there's evidence that, so, you know, some of the communities around Oxford are starting to feel a little bit taken for granted by the university, and the university is trying to address that through a more kind of joined up strategy for good community engagement that will help to support what we do in cancer in particular. But it's something that sort of we're trying to manage it across the board.
Okay, thank you, Katrina. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, ready to move on then to the next item. And again, we're very much focusing on engagement, experience, patient voice. So I'm now going to hand over to Dawn Allen.
William, sorry, William, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think Peter Glass has had his hand up just for a little while. So was that a legacy hand, Peter?
I think it might be a legacy one, yes, which is why I was. Thank you for raising.
All right, thank you. Sorry.
Okay, Peter, was that is a legacy hand?
Yeah, thank you, Williams. Sorry if this is in the wrong place, but it might be more to to the quality improvement project. But the minutes of the last meeting were heavy on the accountability of charities. My wife is chair of a very small charity, and I have to say that Colonel Tom's charity and other scandals, the charity commission are being very heavy, quite correctly I think, on small charities. So on governance, it's very heavy, and for a small charity, it's just not possible to say you need to be accountable for this. I do suggest that if we want more accountability, then maybe NHS funds or whatever. But because obviously Macmillan, I learn, seem to be struggling as well. But please, on accountability, do look at how you can help charities and not just because the minutes look a bit like beating them up. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Yes, I think all small charities have a particular problem, even big ones, and there's no easy answer. So thanks for raising that. Okay, so if we can move on then to Dawn, who's going to be talking about a work of a small charity. Over to you, Dawn.
Hi, thank you. Am I okay to share my screen, William?
Of course, yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, can everybody see that?
Not yet.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go. Can you see that now,
there we
guys?
Go. Yes.
Brilliant. So thank you very much. So thank you for having me. So the Henry Allen Trust, in a young hero's name, a legacy arises. So a family devastated by cancer. Everybody, this is my family. This is my husband, Mark, me, albeit a little bit larger, and my little man, Henry. Did you know every day in the UK, 5 families will be given the absolutely devastating news that their child has cancer? In the UK alone, there's 1,900 new cases. Regrettably, cancer is the biggest disease-based cause of death of children. For me, as a parent and a patient of a child, I believe childhood cancer is not rare. 1 in 500 children will develop some form of childhood cancer by the age of just 14 years. Putting that in perspective, that's 1 in every primary school in Milton Keynes. We support 4 in 1 primary school alone in Milton Keynes. So childhood cancer, for those who don't know, it is very different to adult cancers. It is non-discriminatory. And guys, as we've heard before, it affects children of all nationalities across all different backgrounds. And for me, as a patient voice, awareness and early diagnosis really is fundamental. Diagnosis day. At just 2 years old, my little boy Henry was complaining of tummy aches, leg pain and feeling tired. You can see down there in the bottom picture that distended tummy. I got told by my doctor and my GP on numerous times that that was constipation. This is what I fight for every day, guys. After many appointments with doctors, visits to hospitals, we were given the absolute devastating news: Henry had cancer. I couldn't say the C word for a long time. It was stage 4 MYC-N amplified high risk neuroblastoma, which is one of the worst stagings a child can have. We started an appeal and we raised 140k in 10 months to try and get Henry life-saving treatment abroad. As I've put up there, D-Day, Diagnosis Day, it's a day, guys, that you will never, ever forget. The heart of a lion. Here's Henry, and I just wanted to show you a few pictures of Henry. So I want to tell you a bit more about Henry's legacy and the work we do as a charity. So I'd like to play this video for you.
Got the words to change a nation, but you're biting its tongue. You spent a lifetime stuck inside, so afraid you'll say something wrong. If no one ever hears it, how we gonna learn your song? So come on, come on, come on, come on. There was a time I used to look into my father's eyes. In a happy home, I was thinking I had to go.
Had a wish come true, which was to go to Centre Park for a few days after a long stint in hospital. It was a really welcome break. Yeah, it allowed us to have a few family members with us and just have that quality time that we needed away from hospital, away from home, just try and be a normal family for a few days.
Everybody's had a price. I wonder how they sleep at night. When the sale comes first and the truth comes second, just stop for a minute and smile. Why is everybody so serious? I get so mysterious. Got shades on your eyes and your heels so high that you can't even have a good time. Everybody look to the left. Everybody look to the right. Can you feel that? Yeah. Tonight, it's not about the money, money, money. We don't need your money, money, money. We just gotta make the world dance. Forget about the price.
Dawn was available to answer calls and always responded literally day or night. I felt I could always be open and honest about my fears and worries because she knew the best and worst of what happens when you have a sick child. All the volunteers are so dedicated and caring to the parents as well as the children, and having them supporting me allowed me to be strong and steady for my own family.
The real to me, that charity that came at the time when I needed emotional support and help. You know, Dawn came through the door, and from that moment onwards, I was a part of that family.
In summary of the Henry Allen Trust, I just feel like I was enveloped in angel wings in a circle of love and care, and that's how I genuinely feel about them. They're very special.
All I can say about Dawn is whenever I see her, I always get a smile on my face, and she's like really kind, really happy, always. Don't you worry, child. She ever start a plan for you. Don't you worry, yeah.
Thank you for listening, guys. So now you know my reason why. The importance of a patient voice is so important. To be a voice for the children battling childhood cancer, that is my why. I ensure the patient voice is heard, objectively representing teens, young adults, and their families and the children affected by childhood cancers. You want to be a voice for those who are unable to find theirs. It's amazing how you build relationships and you gain a greater understanding and knowledge. Being a patient voice, you help make improvements whilst contributing constructively, providing valuable opinions, advice and feedback, and most of all, ensuring at all times discussions consider the patient perspective and align with the patient benefit. Involvement. Here are some of the things I've been involved in that I would like to share with you. There's some pictures there with Milton Keynes Cancer Patient Partnership, where we was kindly awarding awards for being collaborative with the hospital. You want to educate and represent your cause. I'm very honoured to say that I do. This evening, I'll be running a GP seminar along with BLMK, which is Bedford, Luton and Milton Keynes hospitals, to try and obviously create awareness of childhood cancers. I also speak to A&E departments, because once you've been to your GP, where do you go next? You present to A&E. So I make sure that everybody is educated and I represent the cause of childhood cancer. I try to improve the experience and outcomes during the journeys and have a meaningful involvement. I try to improve the quality of care and have an influence from my personal background, but also from the families that we support up and down the country. I participate in working groups, steering groups, focus groups, surveys, but also I champion my community and my local community. I always try and bring a unique perspective of my experiences, good or bad, to try and empower other patients. The Quality Improvement Project, I'm truly honoured to be a part of this, and I'd like to share this with you. One of the things my little man said to me was, "Mummy, I want you to help the other children." And that is my purpose and my why. So I've been involved in this project at the moment. I had a co-working group this morning, which is just absolutely awesome, guys. And this is how you can make a real improvement. So we're doing a quality improvement project for cancer survivors in paediatrics after their end of treatment. I found a lot from the Henry Allen Trust that once treatment had finished, they felt like they were abandoned, but they didn't like the word survivorship. They had that survivor guilt. So it was kind of really hard for us. So now we support families up to 5 years, no evidence of disease, because we feel that's really where the support is needed. So you can see here part of the project, the key priorities from the staff event, but also from the patient and parent event. And they were quite very similar, but very different. So from that, we had some working groups and we had some project steps. And also we then went through the emotional key stages of childhood cancer after treatment had finished. So it's quite an involved project, which I think is really meaningful. So you can see here I took part in a survivor parent film, and you can see there the different types of childhood cancers that were highlighted, and also the parents that took part, the survivors, which is really, really a big impact. The film will be released shortly, and it is very, very impactful. We've just released it. The guys at Oxford University Hospital are working super hard to ensure that we do improve the quality after treatment. And it's just, I can't wait for the video to be released, because it truly does encapsulate everything. And it's true power, guys. That's when we talk about collaboration and working with the NHS, working with the medical professionals. We had a joint event. It was incredible to be heard as a voice, to have that say, but also to hear from the staff, to hear from the medical professionals that are on the ground. And from this, we decided to put that we needed 4 areas, work groups from a joint event. We needed the support, we needed an information hub, and we needed a clinic now about the future vision, but also the service structure. So this is very in its new infant stage, but it is already making such waves. The signs of childhood cancer, guys. I'm pleased to say we are 10 years supporting families battling childhood cancers. We do lots of literature on how to help and support a family battling childhood cancer, and also the signs and symptoms. When I look at the signs and symptoms and I educate, you could possibly make yourself aware of the signs and symptoms of childhood cancer. I never ever thought my little boy would get cancer. I didn't even know children got cancer, but raising awareness is so important. On our signs and symptom cards, Henry had most of those signs and symptoms. I'd like to play for you another project that I've been involved in, and I hope it will play for you. I think people don't understand how to talk to people, so they just come out with the cliches, in effect, of what they think you should be wanting to hear.
Don't say, "I know what you're going through," because you don't. Don't use the word closure. It's always open.
Someone said to me the other day, don't you think it's time you should, you know, let it go now? You can't let it go. That was your child. That's your baby. And you really feel like snapping back. You don't want to get over it. You've got such wonderful memories. Don't force your child to speak to you until they're ready to. When they are ready to speak to you, listen. Don't assume that you understand what they're going through. A lot of the unhelpful, if I dare say it, support we had came from well-intentioned people that were offering things that they assumed they would have wanted. I think one thing that's worth doing is just always acknowledging that person's bereavement.
Instead of just saying hi and then walking off.
And then if you've got a memory of the child and it's lovely and cheerful, do tell them.
Do sit on the end of the bed and do listen.
Do keep connected after the initial shock, some time after the initial shock.
Do bring food.
Even if you just want to leave it on the doorstep because you don't know what to say, or you don't want to have a comment, you know, just people left us things
on the doorstep,
which was amazing.
Found it very hard to pick up the phone and ask for help. The best thing for me was when people just did things for me. If you don't know what to say, then just give them a hug.
Do hug people.
A hug says a million words to me, and that's sometimes all I wanted was just to somebody just hug me. If you have a friend going through it, just be there. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to say something to make them feel better. Just let them be. Thank you. You've done that. You've not told me to get over it, or you've just let me. Thank you.
Guys, that is the power of collaboration, what you can do and how we can all make a difference. No matter what our background or our skills, everybody here today has the power to improve the lives of others. Get involved in cancer awareness.
Dawn,
Thank you for listening.
Okay, Dawn, thank you so much for that. I think it's a very powerful story of kind of how one draws on one's own painful experience and, you know, does something that makes a difference. Peter, a quick comment?
Yes, I just feel totally unworthy to follow that. I just remember from past happy times, you know, if you want to know an answer, ask a teenager. And I'd wonder to know what Dawn thinks about involving, no, right, instead of just calling them arrogant, is it time to involve teenagers?
I find with the teenagers, there was a lot of teenagers that are taking part in our project, and their voices really do make a difference. And I think sometimes the young adults of today, they get a bad rap. They really do. And all they want to do is have their voice heard and be heard. And I think it's giving them that platform to be heard. And yeah, no, I have a totally different opinion of the young adults of today. All they want. You're welcome. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Dawn. Okay, we're going to move on now to talk about from the work of another charity. Again, it happens to be based in Milton Keynes, not quite the centre of the universe, but you know, anyway. Sorry, I'm speaking as someone who lives in Milton Keynes. Suzanne, over to you.
Yeah, hi there. Has someone able to share my screen, because I'm unable to do it, and I know Lisa was going to do it, but she's just
having some problems.
So Lyndall, if you can go to slide 25, if you can see the slides in your presentation. You're on mute at the moment, sorry.
Sorry, it's just not moving forward at the moment. Trying to move it. Let me come out of it. Stop sharing for a moment.
While she's doing that, I'll just reiterate, I know Dawn and the Henry Allen Trust very, very well, and what she does there is amazing and very inspiring. So we always say she's the paediatric cancer charity and I'm the adult cancer charity, and
absolutely
works very well together.
It really does, and we collaborate as well, guys. And that's the other thing, is we collaborate and we not swap over patients. That sounds awful, doesn't it? But you know, collaborate when they get to a certain age.
And advice as well. You know, when you're running your own charity, it's very isolating at times, and very emotional with what we both deal with. So it's important that we help each other along the way. And I think we do.
Right.
Yeah, so honoured.
We've got it up. Let's see if we can run it.
Right, I'll just say next screen as we move on. So Al's Pals. So this is my dad. So this is why I started Al's Pals. So like Dawn has a reason to her why. And I don't think anyone can ever take away the loss of a child. Has to be the worst loss ever. But I lost my dad at 75 years of age. I was very lucky to have him for that long. But it's still a horrible loss. And he died of prostate and bone cancer back in 2018. And what we found whilst we were in hospital is the lack of emotional support, not just for my dad, but for us as a family as well. And very similar to how sort of Henry approached his mum, but my dad sort of said to me, I'd love to talk to someone in hospital other than my family, because what my dad was scared about, which was dying, he didn't want to talk to us about it. You know, we're emotionally involved and he didn't want to burden us with that. So unfortunately, I did do a bit of research at the time, and there wasn't anything in hospital or surrounding where they offer emotional support. My dad also refused treatment at the end, so he wanted to be in control of his death. And there lied a problem, because the hospices wouldn't get involved then, because they're all about pain management. Now, that was my dad's choice, but unfortunately, as a family, we were very, very isolated at the end with his death. So literally weeks after he died, if you want to move on to the next screen, I wrote into Milton Keynes Hospital and I told them of the journey that we'd had and the difference I wanted to make, not only in my dad's legacy, but also for other people, because I don't think that other people should have experienced what we had. So the story of Al's Pals. So as I say, I wrote into hospital. You know, the medical staff gave him the treatment and they gave him that medicinal support, but the lack was in emotional support. And unfortunately, from what I see day to day, it is still lacking a little bit. And I can't reach everyone, but hopefully as a charity, we can pick up the pieces and help a certain few. So it was born in 2019, but we officially launched in 2020. Sadly, 2 weeks before lockdown, when the cancer centre opened. So we had a bit of a difficult start, but myself and one other volunteer was allowed into the hospital, and we there supported patients in the chemotherapy ward. And from there, we've grown into a bigger service now, offering more services and hopefully touching the hearts of many others. So if you'd like to move on to the next screen. So our vision is to create that support network for cancer patients in Buckinghamshire, Bedfordshire, Northamptonshire and Hertfordshire. Although we're very much based Buckinghamshire, we have also been approached by Bedfordshire Hospital, and we have supported patients in those regions as well. But we have to be very careful, because logistically and financially, we're not in that place where we can grow into those regions 100%. So we have to be very choosy with how we go about this. Next slide. So we have a little strap line. Our volunteers are the heart of our charity. Without them, we would literally have nothing. So they don't necessarily have the time. I have volunteers that are insanely busy, but what they do have is heart. And that is what we bring into Al's Pals. And that's what it's about, is that heart. Next slide. So currently the services we offer patients and families. So any service we offer is open to family members as well. So we are in the hospital. So that's in the chemotherapy ward in the cancer centre. And we're also up in Ward 25. And that ranges from anyone that obviously goes in with an infection, invasive treatment, and also end of life. So we have been known to sit with people just before they have passed. We also offer home support that launched in 2021. And that is our biggest area of growth, because we desperately need more volunteers and we desperately need that service to grow, because we are only touching the surface with what we could potentially achieve. We also have an online support group. It's an app where people can go online and have support. We have the support groups. We did have one in Olney and Milton Keynes, which we've had to put on hold for now, just purely because we don't have the volunteers to manage it. And we do also have an in-house psychologist who we fund anything up to 6 sessions per patient or family member. And that is for someone that we feel that needs more support that they're not getting. We all know people have waiting lists. I'm very fortunate our psychologist does not have a waiting list, but he is private and it is a cost to us as a charity, but it's something we desperately want to open out to people, because unfortunately it's just an area that people feel that is lacking. Next slide. So our hospital support, we offer, as I say, support in the chemotherapy ward, support in ward 25. We can also attend appointments with people, so we can sit with them whilst they're receiving some news from their consultant, or if perhaps if they're on their own, they don't have that support with someone for their chemotherapy. I helped a patient in Northampton recently, and I literally spent all day with him. A, because I couldn't expect another volunteer to do that, and B, I had a free day, which is quite rare. So I thought, I'm going to help him myself, and he's now a home support patient of ours. And we also help with complaints as well. One thing we're also trying to do is eradicate any stress for a family. And if they feel that they've had a bad experience, we want to help them in that. We're very impartial, so we don't take sides, but we are there for the patient and we're there to help offload that stress. And obviously the support for the family as well. Next slide, please. So I'm hoping this video will play. This is a story of Glenn. Glenn is a 44-year-old man who's terminally ill with cancer, and he is the most inspirational person I've ever met in my life. And he does a lot for us as a charity. He's still here with us and he's fighting every step of the way. So hopefully this will play. Thank you. If you just click on it, it should play.
Okay, let's try the technology then.
Can you hear?
Nope. I can hear, but
just need to click on the link.
Yeah.
I can hear it, but you guys can't hear it. Is that right?
No, no.
Yeah, that's the trouble I had.
Oh, was it? Okay.
I'll put the link into the chat, and obviously
Yeah.
it will be included as part of this slide deck as well. Even if I was to go on and via YouTube, which I did earlier on, for some reason it's not transmitting over Teams. So we will obviously include the link for everyone to that. I'm just really sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, we'll move on to the next slide. I would say it's on our website. Just take a look as well. You know, it's a real beneficial video just to show the work that we do. Oh, it's come up now. Does it play?
I can play it, but you just can't hear it.
Can't hear it. Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next slide. No. We got the next slide. Yay. Okay, home support. So this is our biggest service that we have. As I said, desperately need volunteers, desperately need that support from GP surgeries and so forth. So we offer the service at home, and that is patient support. It's also family support. We signpost them to other services. We can help them with benefits, things like that. We can provide that support step by step, and that's not only in person but by phone as well, and by text message. I text a lot of patients that don't necessarily need that one-to-one support, but they'd just like to know that someone's there, and that's a great way of reaching out. So that could be via text or by our online app. We also, as I said, support them with complaints, psychology support. And we launched in 2021 with our home support service. And currently, we really only have one GP service on board. We get a few referrals from Willen Hospice. We get a few from the hospital. But the main ones we get referrals from is Buckingham Swan Practice. We are with Cobb's Garden Surgery as well. But again, logistically, there's been a few issues there for us supporting patients. But with one GP on board, we've had over 80 referrals. So you can just see the need for this service if we were with every single GP service in Milton Keynes. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And again, the feedback we've had from those testimonials, they're all on our website, because I appreciate we're not going to be able to see the videos. So if we move on to the next slide, which was another video, I very much doubt we're going to get sound, but we could give it a go. If you move on to the next slide.
Yep, bear with me, trying to move it and it's not moving.
Oh, okay.
I might have to stop sharing and share again.
The joy of technical computers.
So at the bottom left, Lyndall, there is a play button, but it's hidden until you sort of hover over it.
Yeah.
So on my screen, it's completely black and I can't see anything.
Yeah, hover over the bottom left.
Play thing on the left.
I don't have a play thing. My screen's completely
It's just
black.
completely blank, yes.
Just move on then.
Let's see now. Is that working?
Oh, the video plays, but I don't think there's any sound.
But there's no sound. Yeah, that's the trouble that I had this way as well. I mean, again, in the presentation, it plays, Susan. It's fabulous. But I'll make sure that when the PowerPoint is circulated, obviously people will be able to hear it directly. It's just that we can't share it here.
Oh, I was just going to say, could have played it without the sound because it still tells the story because there's words on it. So it just wouldn't have the music. But that's fine.
Would you like me to go back?
If you can, but if not, don't worry. There we go. Lovely, thanks for that. if you just move on to the next screen. So that video was a video we did to launch the home support service initially. And it had someone singing "You'll Never Walk Alone" because we have the Liverpool background. My dad was big on musicals and that was one of his favourite songs. So it's a shame you couldn't hear it because this is a great song. But yeah, so this is our Owls, Pals and Me. This is our online app. So we have this for cancer patients, family members, and we also have a support chat room for our volunteers as well, because obviously that's really vital that our volunteers feel supported, especially dealing with such an emotive subject. So it's a great little app. We probably don't utilise it enough because it's me managing it, because it is just me. So sometimes it's a bit difficult to get out there and do everything. So if you can move on to the next screen. So support groups, I mentioned we had one in Olney, but as I say, that's had to put a hold. We've just skipped a screen, but there was a support group screen prior to that. But you can keep on this screen now because the community outreach. So we're currently utilising our volunteers to see how they can spread awareness of the charity. So what we're trying to do is, for us, it's about getting more volunteers on board so that community outreach can be bigger and better and we can obtain more volunteers. It's a challenge. I mean, challenging to get volunteers anyway, but when you're going into people's homes and supporting them, it's quite emotive. People that we tend to support at home tend to be given a terminal prognosis. That terminal prognosis could be a year, 2 years. So people are going to get very attached to that individual. So it's very difficult and only suits certain types of volunteers. But we also try and speak to people from different ethnic backgrounds as well. So one thing we're trying to do is our volunteers that do come from a different ethnic background, we're utilising them to then approach people from their culture, from their religion, because ultimately they speak the language. We've had situations where we've had someone wanting our support, but they didn't speak a word of English and we just couldn't help them. We didn't know which way to turn. So now we've started, for those that do speak different languages, to utilise them a little bit more. So a classic example, we had a guy he was born in Pakistan, so he spoke Urdu. We had a gentleman that lost his wife very suddenly in hospital to cancer, and he could speak English, but his wife couldn't. So Naveen, who is one of my amazing volunteers, would go in and just speak to her pretty much every day until she passed. He then supported the family member for up to 8 weeks after she passed, because that's what we offer as a charity. And he also did see our psychologist just for that bit of extra support. But it's important that people are aware of that. We probably don't talk about it too much because, again, we don't feel we have enough people there to talk about it with. But, very similar to what Dawn's doing in getting out there is something that we would like to do from Owls Pals. I guess the issue I face, the challenges I face is time, because it's just me in the charity and we are very infant. We're only coming into our 4th year, bearing in mind 18 months was lockdown. It's really hard for me to have that time to go out there and talk and do what I need to do, because I'm still visiting people at home as well, because I don't have enough volunteers. So this is the daily challenge that we face. But ultimately, I do need to speak to more surgeries, even if it is just to give a leaflet, to have a phone call. Those sort of things can really help people. Just move on to the next slide. So there are obviously many challenges from our perspective, but how can you help? It's just raising awareness, not only from simple things like we do a Wear Red for Owl Day, you could get dressed in red on July the 13th. But our main focus is spreading awareness of what we do, getting more volunteers, who maybe would this suit? And it's those sort of things, speaking to other GP surgeries, and also promotion within your own community, whether that's an ethnic community or not. But being able to go in and talk to these people would be amazing. But like I say, time is precious, so I can only do what I can do. But if I can help in any way, I'd love to. If we just move on to the next slide. So it's just some little testimonials there about what our patients say. As I say, we do have a whole website page on that, but it's definitely worth looking at. And then just to finish, just a little about volunteering. So if you just move on to the next slide, because our main focus is the volunteering, because I think the need for the service is huge, but we don't have enough volunteers. Obviously, our volunteers can do so much, and it doesn't have to be home support, but that is obviously the main area. But these are the different options that people can have. And then moving on to the next slide. So our volunteers are just there basically to provide that support within the hospital and outside, providing a listening ear. It's so simple. We just listen. That's all we do. But by listening, it enables that patient to get everything off their chest, and they feel so much better at the end of it. And I never knew the quality of what that can create, and it's amazing. I mean, obviously, we want to support, enable, and empower them. There is one last video, which is the last slide. The likelihood is you probably won't hear it. Will it have the focus? Probably not. So I think we'll send that out. But it's a great little video about what we do at the cancer centre as well as what we do at home. And it just enables people to see the services that we offer. So I'm sorry about the videos and the fact I couldn't share story of my life. I'm so bad at technical, but yeah, plus I'm on my phone, which doesn't help. But if anyone's got any questions, anything about that, please just let me know. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Suzanne. Don't apologise at all. We all have challenges with technology.
Yeah.
We're running a bit behind, so let's sort of focus on some quick questions. Peter?
Thank you, William. What I have found absolutely wonderful is that most of the refugees who come to our shores speak either Spanish or Arabic, which of course is a very different script. Well, I have a particular interest in the Hong Kong community. Don't know whether this will oh, there we are. This says hello. This is Cantonese, and that, as you can see, is Cantonese script. It's so easy to use. Arabic, the Cantonese script, maybe Russian. I would imagine yes. So Suzanne, thank you very much. Next time you just don't know what to do, try this app.
What's it called?
Say Hi is just as good, I think, I understand, as Microsoft's Translator.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a great idea, isn't it? But I guess for us, it's that personal connection of being having someone there fluent, because they're different ethnicities, and I'm not sort of putting everyone in that box, but they can be difficult because family members will support them. And they get that support from their family, but actually sometimes maybe the family member needs a bit of support, and to be able to help them and to be able to help them in their language, I think will go a long way. And that's something I really want to strive towards as well.
Okay, thanks, Suzanne.
Thank you.
Sapa, comment from you? Well, you're on mute, Sapa.
Sorry. Suzanne and Dawn, brilliant, lovely. I really appreciate the work that you guys are doing. I was just going to offer a couple of nuggets coming from the South Asian community and working in this space. Don't beat yourself up, because there is only so much that small charities can do. You're stretched with resources and you're stretched with budgets. The beauty in all of this is it's going to come from collaboration. Speak to other South Asian charities, speak to other communities where you can engage and work in collaboration. And the one thing that I will say, and I've done a lot of work with Macmillan around all of this, is that translations are not the be all and end all. At the end of the day, there is so much. We're fourth generation Asians living in the UK now. Translation is for a very small amount of the population. Speaking to somebody in their own language is very reassuring, but you can't expect all of your volunteers to be able to do all of that. It's just too much pressure to put on yourself as small charities with stretched resources already. So my advice is connect as much as you can, collaborate as much as you can. There are other charities within sort of like the Bucks and Berks area doing work in this area. Even if they are able to signpost people to you and you're able to signpost people to them, that whole collaboration is where we're going to, you know, achieve the best outcomes for the patient, because that's who we've all got at the heart of all of the work that we do. So just a little bit of input from me.
Yeah,
okay, thanks a lot, Saba. Okay, thank you, Dawn and Suzanne, for such wonderful presentations. I think you've really demonstrated the importance and the significance of what small charities can do. And there are lots of kind of small charities spread right across the area. And I think it's really important that, you know, people know more about you and them. So thank you very much for joining us. Okay, we're now going to move on to sort of split up into small groups. So, you know, we've had our technical challenges this morning, so let's see if this works. I think what we really want to do is, I mean, obviously, you've all been spending quite a lot of time listening to some very interesting presentations, and but I think what I'd really like us to do now is to get involved in a bit more discussion, particularly about how do we, you know, as a group, better engage across the system we have to promote membership with other stakeholders. I think that's particularly about how we can promote involvement and recruitment for, you know, with people with lived experience of cancer, and how we can support them to get involved. So this is just a small amount of time for us to have a discussion about how do we engage and involve more people. So taking account of the time, we're probably just going to break up for about 10 minutes. And if we could have someone in each group just take responsibility for a very brief and quick feedback afterwards. So
William, I'm just going to duck out of this one and come back in so that I can filter people into rooms. So fingers crossed. If it doesn't work, then we'll just come up with plan B.
We'll do it another way. Okay.